Ukraine can sit at the negotiating table in a position of strength. RAF pilots help secure Allied skies. The Royal Navy helps keep our seas safe. And the British Army contributes to our shared security. You are world-leading in cyber and innovation. And you make an invaluable contribution to our nuclear deterrent. The UK is also a firm friend to Ukraine. You have provided billions in military and humanitarian aid, vital training and landmark security guarantees. Going forward, we must not only sustain but continue to step up our support, so that when the time comes, Ukraine can sit at the negotiating table in a position of strength and pursue a good deal for lasting peace. Our world is increasingly more dangerous. We must be better equipped to meet any threat across all domains, both now and in the future. Russian destabilization campaigns in allied countries are on the rise. They have targeted digital infrastructure, British officials and even your National Health Service. Just last month, once again, you detected a Russian spy ship in British waters. And you made it clear to Moscow that such brazen acts were simply unacceptable. To stop these attacks once and for all, we need to up our game and make sure our deterrence leaves no room for doubt. We can do this by investing even more in defense. To put it in another way, to prevent war, we must spend more. The UK understands this instinctively. You have long met the 2% target. And I welcome plans to further increase investments in defense. Because in a more dangerous world, 2% will not be enough to keep us safe. We need to invest considerably more. We also need to replenish our stocks, and fast. There's no time to waste. Reviving our defense industries to ramp up defense production is an absolute must. During World War II, factories in the UK and the US produced billions of rounds of ammunition. That was before digitization and automation. With all the might of British manufacturing, just imagine what we could achieve now. The challenges we face are complex, but together in NATO, there's nothing we cannot do. So thank you for your continued leadership and support of our transatlantic alliance.
Secretary General, NATO has stood united against Russia with all allies in lockstep since the invasion in 2022. Now 2 members, Canada and US, are on the cusp of a trade war. Do you fear the alliance is unravelling at the most fragile of times? And Prime Minister, President Trump says tariffs on the EU are coming. He hasn't ruled out tariffs on the UK. Are you worried about that? And be it from forcing Ukraine to the negotiating table to threatening trade wars with allies, isn't it the truth that President Trump is a bad thing for Europe's economic prosperity and security? Thank you very much.
On your first question, let me say that I'm absolutely convinced we can deal with these issues, and there are always issues between allies. It is never always tranquil and happy-going. There are always issues, sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller. But I'm absolutely convinced that will not get in the way of our collective determination to keep our deterrence strong. And when you talk trade, it is interesting to see that the trade surplus of the US getting into Europe is since 2022. They sell more to Europe than we sell to them. And the net surplus is $180 billion since 2022. So that tells you something, that there are more figures and numbers to look at. But going back to your question, I'm absolutely convinced it will not have an impact on our collective deterrence. Well, on your question about NATO and the assumption that you could run NATO without the US, that is for so many reasons a silly thought.
I wasn't assuming.
At least...
European defence without the US.
Yeah, but that means that you have European defense without the US being involved. That's what you're saying. That is a NATO or whatever the organization is then called without the US. For many reasons that will not work. First of all, because we are not, as the Prime Minister was saying, as Keir Starmer was saying, when you look at Ukraine, it is not just Ukraine and Russia, which would be bad enough. It is a geopolitical thing which is going on. The US realizes that, European side of NATO realizes that, it is China, North Korea, Iran, all getting connected to Russia. So this is a geopolitical thing playing out at the moment with Ukraine. And therefore Ukraine must prevail not only for Ukraine's sake, first of all, but also because of the geopolitical impact. And for NATO as a whole, collectively, we are 20 times bigger than the Russian economy. Collectively, we are able to protect the collective NATO territory, including the US. And the US is also under threat now with the long-range nuclear long-range missiles coming out of North Korea maybe in the future, thanks to all the technology the Russians are delivering. So for so many reasons, we have to stay connected. I'm a staunch transatlanticist. I absolutely believe that the best thing the West can do is to stay united. And I know that the same thinking is still prevalent in the US, including in the White House.
In relation to the US and the EU, or Europe more generally, if you look at our vital interests, it's really important that we don't, that we work with both and we don't see it as an either or. On defence and security, we are working very closely with our European allies every day, particularly in Ukraine, but not only in Ukraine, but equally on defence and security with the US and the special relationship in relation to defence, security and, of course, the intelligence capability that we have developed together. This is vitally important. And it is in the best interests of the UK, but also the best interests, I think, in terms of global security and defence, that we continue to work both with the US and with Europe on these vital issues. When it comes to trade equally, we've got a huge amount of trade between the US and the UK, as we have with the EU, and that's why it's important that I always act in the national interest, the best interests of the UK, as we stay resolute saying that it's important that we work with both sets of partners, particularly this volatile time, where I think it's generally accepted and rightly accepted that we face a more volatile world now than we have done for many decades. So now is the time to step up on all fronts with both the US and the EU. It is not the time to pull back on either front. Thank you very much.